Welcome, Hudson Valley, to this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media of the Hudson Valley radio stations. This week on In Touch, I speak with Krista Collopy, Senior Regional Director of Comfort Zone Camp. Besides being an amazing program that offers all of the traditional activities like playing games, sports, rock climbing, archery, camping, arts and crafts, bonfires, s'mores, and more, Comfort Zone Camp's main mission is to support families who are grieving the death of a loved one. While having fun in a camp setting, participants also acquire the tools and skills to help cope with their loss. Krista was once a camper and talks about her personal experience in the program and how it helped after the loss of her dad. Now celebrating its 25th anniversary this year, Comfort Zone Camp offers meaningful opportunities that can forever impact the lives of those who attend. We invite you to join us and listen to a previously recorded conversation between Krista and myself here on In Touch. Hello, Hudson Valley. You're listening to another episode of In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's award-winning public affairs and issues program. We got a great episode for you guys today, and honestly, I think it's going to be a really profound episode, something that it has been really near and dear to my heart, especially the way that I've seen friends come and go, family come and go, and the way that I've been prioritizing mental health and grief in my own life. I was saying I probably might get emotional during this episode because this is just so amazing and profound of a program, and I'm so happy to highlight it today. With us, we have Krista Collopy, Senior Regional Director of Comfort Zone Camp. They support families who are grieving the death of a loved one. They have all these different programs offered at little to no cost, and kids and family members get to have a traditional camp experience while acquiring the skills and tools to help out with that grief. God, I wish I had something like that when I was younger. That's really terrific, and I can't wait to get into all the wonderful programs and the things that they are doing. Krista, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Connor. Thanks for having me here.
So happy to have you in here. And I know I just gave a little bit of an overview myself, but somebody as yourself being a part of it and all would do a much better job than I. So if you could just start off with a broad overview for everybody listening who may be uninitiated with Comfort Zone Camp.
Great. Comfort Zone Camp is a nonprofit 501c3, and we are a national organization. We were born in Richmond, Virginia, and we are here to help support kids who've experienced a death of a parent, a sibling, a primary guardian, or a friend. And we do that all completely free of charge. I mean, let's face it, what else is free in life? Not much. Yeah. And what's great is that Comfort Zone's programs are free of charge for kids ages 7 to 17 who've had that death in their family. We also help young adults ages 18 to 25, and we often run parent-guardian programs to help the entire family holistically after they've experienced a rough tragedy in their life. And we're all about helping a kid take that tragedy and not letting that define them, helping them become more resilient so that they can live a life that is just full, and that loss and that death doesn't have to define them. And also a fun fact about me is that I'm a former camper for Comfort Zone Camp. So I can speak about the program because I went through it myself after my dad died.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that you went through that, but I'm also so happy to have you here talking about it. And just seeing your smile today as you're explaining everything just goes to show how powerful this program is and the way that everything works. The fact that it is free. You know, that is such a gate with so many different programs and a lot of different things a lot of the time. For instance, for me, I remember definitely with the pandemic, I was losing friends from illness, from COVID, all that, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have the money or the insurance to do anything at the time. But then when my grandmother passed away, she was in the hospice program, they offered grief counseling for free. As soon as I heard free, I'm like, sign me up. And that was able to help get me through. But that was the gate. That was the gate. And there are so many other people that have to deal with that gate. So it's amazing that you guys offer this free of charge for everybody. So you said yourself that you went through this program. I don't mean to get too personal, say as much as you feel comfortable talking about, but could you explain to us your situation and your experience with the camp and how that led you to take on this role now as the Senior Regional Director?
So I grew up in a small family. It was just my mom and my dad, only children out there. If that's you,
Same here.
shout out. Okay, excellent.
Yep.
So my mom, when I was growing up, when I was 6 months old, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And I just grew up knowing that she was always sick. And then all of a sudden, when I was 9, my dad started seeing double, went to the doctor, and he found out he had a glioblastoma brain tumor. 6 months later, he died. And I thought if anyone in my family was going to die, it was going to be my mom. So it was just a total flip of the switch. And I felt like, okay, I'm 9 years old and I have to grow up and I have to help my mom now. I have to be her caretaker. And so that's how I went through life. And I actually went to a grief group that actually bunched us in with divorced parents. And they were like, hey, kids, it's the same thing. And I'd be like consoling the kid next to me that's like, I don't get to see my dad on the weekends. And I'm like, it's okay, buddy. And it just wasn't wasn't what I needed. No. And so when I was a teenager, my mom and I were walking through a street fair and we saw a sign that said Comfort Zone Camp. And I was like, that's a grief camp for kids. Wait, I should go there. So my mom signed me up, but the camp wasn't until the fall because it's just on the weekends. It's just a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so as the weekend got a little bit closer, I was like, oh no, what did I just do? I signed myself up to go hang out in the woods and talk about my dead dad. Well, that does not seem like a good time. I am not excited for this. I'm really nervous. I don't know anyone. I drove there with my mom. Both of my feet were on the dashboard and I was mad. I was not interested. I was like, this is going to be such a terrible weekend. I get to the camp and I meet my big buddy. So all of the kids get matched 1-to-1 based on a volunteer that has a similar personality and interest. So I had this awesome girl who was 19. She was loved basketball, and she was just like such a great fit for me. I was still a little nervous because I also saw all these other little kids running around, and I was 16. And you're 16, you're too cool for school. So we get into the camp program. They're doing all these silly icebreaker games, getting goofy, and got to be honest, I was not into it. Then we sit down and we do a big buddy share because Comfort Zone's about sharing your story and hearing and meeting other people and learning how to talk about it. So this girl who was 19 at the time, her name was Hannah, she stood up and she shared that when she was 9 years old, her dad died from a brain tumor.
Wow.
And in that moment, my world was rocked because I had never met anyone that had lost a parent. And then all of a sudden, this girl has the same exact story as me. I felt just total goosebumps, and I knew I was supposed to be here at that Comfort Zone camp. So the next thing that we do is we get broken up into kids that are the same age as us, and we call that healing circles. And you get to meet other peers, and you get to talk to them and share your stories. So I went into my healing circle, and I was like, guys, you wouldn't believe this. I have this amazing experience. Like, I want to talk about my dad. And it was such a healing opportunity. And in that moment, I opened myself up to the weekend. Wow. And became just so in love with it, came back again as a camper again, then became a volunteer. And now I obviously really like the place because I'm working here now. But it was a life-changing experience. And I got to say, lots of kids and lots of families come kind of kicking and screaming, but then by Sunday, they do not want to leave.
I can understand that. I can understand that being apprehensive at first, especially like you said at first, you were like, yeah, well, I should do this. But then when the realization kicks in, when you're just about to go, it's like, oh, God, what did I do here? Yeah, my gosh. It's tough to open yourself up like that. And one thing that I think is interesting about your story about the camp is that you lost your dad when you were 9, but you didn't go to this camp until you were 16. I think that is so important to mention, that time gap, because grief doesn't have a timeline. It's not like, oh, it's been 2 months or something, you should be over that. That's not how it works.
Exactly. We like to say grief is a lifelong journey, and that's why we're helping these kids. And I think what's so important is that we invite kids to come back to our program year after year, because what they're dealing with and grieving with at age 7 looks so much different when they're in middle school and then when they're graduating. Wait, how do I graduate without my dad? How can I incorporate him? And then as they become young adults as well, how am I supposed to make myself a person in the world without my family members? So it's a beautiful journey that Comfort Zone allows kids to grow up and grow through with.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And I don't know if we've said this number yet, but since 1999, so that's 25 years in business now. Congrats on that. Comfort Zone Camp has helped over 23,000 kids, not 2,300 kids, 23,000 kids. That's a huge impact. That's so many kids' lives that are being helped with that. So I think that is amazing. And I got to ask, are you still in touch with your big buddy at all?
I am in touch. I've had
That's
a couple
awesome.
different big buddies, and it's been amazing. And what's great is that I've been a big buddy, and my little buddies have gone on to be big buddies. So it's this beautiful chain reaction. It's almost like the sorority sisterhood,
Yes.
but it's such a great community of just people that get it, truly get it. Because
Yeah.
when you lose someone, people just kind of think, hey, you should be over it, or it's been a while. It's been 7 years. It's been 23 years since my dad died, and I still think about him and I still honor him. And even though it's been so long, he's still such a big part of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and as you should be able to honor him and appreciate the moments you had and learn from all that and all these people around. Wow, you really lucked out with that big buddy. That first one, though, is like similar age, 16 and 19. You're not too far away from each other, but then also very similar stories. So you're able to relate. And considering 23,000 kids helped, there's a good chance when you show up, you will meet somebody with a similar story, and you can feel seen and heard and understood. So that's big. Again, you're listening to In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's award-winning public affairs and issues program. We are speaking with Krista, the Senior Regional Director of Comfort Zone Camp. She's been very transparent and vulnerable with us, telling us about her story, how she was originally a camper in this program that supports families and kids who are grieving the death of a loved one. And it is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. It's got so many great things going on. Actually, one of the really cool things that just happened summer of last year was y'all were featured in Time magazine for an incredible article. I read it a few times, and it's a powerful thing. And one of the things in that article that they focused on, that I want to focus on for a moment now, is the suicide-specific bereavement groups that you have. Now, we've mentioned before that Comfort Zone Camp helps out kids who really broad spectrum of loss. It could be suicide, it could be overdose, it could be illness, it could be just about anything. But the suicide-specific group, as mentioned in that article, has really risen recently, which is kind of scary because reading the statistic that the camp grew 50% from 2022 to 2023. Amazing that you guys are there to offer that and be there for all those kids, but the fact that there's a need is worrisome. So can you talk to us about what those programs are like, the suicide-specific ones, and why you've seen such a big increase in it?
So we started offering the suicide loss program we've been running it for numerous years. And then it was during COVID, we started running COVID loss specific camps. Mm-hmm. And then we started to realize, and we were running the numbers of our applications, and we saw a massive increase in suicide loss applications and overdose loss applications. And so we continued our outreach, and we realized that during COVID, the coping mechanisms that folks had were maybe not so great. And they made a turn towards either using drugs or harming themselves. And so we saw a massive increase in suicide loss, and our applications went so large. We almost had a waiting list for the program. And that program is so special because it helps families 7 to 17, young adults and parents. And when you are able to bring together all these families that have had experience with suicide loss, that stigma just kind of releases the room. And it's a really powerful program because they can all be there to support each other in their different situations, but also very similar situations. There's a lot of extra feelings that happen when you go through a suicide loss. There is just anger There could be just the grief is a little bit more intense of I'm upset at them. Why would they do that? Why would they, not pick me? Why are they feeling that way? Why couldn't they know that it would have been better if they were here? And really helping them understand. And it's been a really powerful program, and Time Magazine got to come out and feature it. And it was a really amazing weekend of just connection. And what we see is that families come back year after year and they grow within that program.
That's awesome. One term in particular that I found interesting and I wanted to bring up, suicide grief has been referred to as disenfranchised grief. And I find that a very interesting term. Do you think you could dive into that a little further for us?
When we think of disenfranchised grief, we think of a child that is looking at that person but not understanding the loss around the suicide loss of that person who is dying by suicide is feeling that life is better without them being there. They're being a release. And so when that griever is going through this type of loss, they have a lot more complex emotions, whether that can be anger, they have resentment, they have just the grief of what could I have done? Was there, and another really interesting thought about suicide loss is that often that person is having the best time. Maybe they've been struggling for a long time with depression, but then all of a sudden they take a trip to Disneyland and the whole family's like, wow, you know what? They're feeling great. They're doing good. Things are actually, maybe there's a positive here. But unfortunately, that sometimes is when that person actually makes the decision that they're going to go ahead with the suicide loss. And they are going to commit suicide. And then unfortunately, that family just goes from the happiest moment in their life to the ultimate tragedy. And that can be really challenging.
And then it gets linked.
It gets linked together and they're like, why didn't I see the signs? So they're blaming themselves. What could I have done? And it's a really challenging grief. I think that's what's so wonderful about this program is that you can bring all of that together and these families can support each other and learn from each other.
I think that's great that they are able to learn from each other and able to support each other because it is such a difficult one. There's much more weight to it. Absolutely.
I mean, you could live forever in the why.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we have to help the campers understand that we can't answer the why. And they're never going to be able to find that answer. And that's going to be okay.
It's how to grow around it.
Right. And the other part that's so important about Comfort Zone is that we're here to help them. We have them for 3 days. But we're here to help them grow and become more resilient. And with these tools that we're teaching them throughout the 3 days, they're going to be more resilient in their life because we actually have the stats of kids that don't receive any grief support are 5 times more likely to die by suicide, 10 times more likely to develop a substance abuse problem, 20 times more likely to have a behavioral disorder. So by coming to Comfort Zone Camp and even sharing the hardest moments of your life, you're going to be able to be on a better path. Yeah,
absolutely. And one thing that I think is great about this camp is it's not just like when you hear camp, you think summer, but you guys offer stuff all year round, different areas. As you said, this is a national organization, so you guys have a broad reach. And I just want to focus in on some of the stuff that you guys offer all year round, along with a program that you're going to be doing actually just south of here in Fishkill later in September. You have an overdose program that you're going to do specifically. So yeah, if you can get into that year-wide kind of idea and also, of course, that Fishkill program.
We are all over the country. We started really small, Richmond, Virginia, and actually came up to the New York area right after 9/11. And the crazy story is that we had a board meeting on September 10th, 2001, and we talked about expanding. They said no. The next day, the Twin Towers fell. And we came up here and we ran those 9/11 camps. And now we run camps in 10 different states. and we run over 30 different programs. We're still adding more camps to our calendar this year, but it is a resource all over the country. And an amazing fact, too, we had a family travel from the Netherlands that came to our suicide loss program this past year.
Wow.
And we run virtual programs, and we just had a family from the Virgin Islands log into that. So it's for anyone, wherever you are listening, you can participate in a Comfort Zone Camp program.
That's awesome. And specifically to mention the one that's going to be happening in Fishkill later in September, it's overdose specific, correct?
It is. It is overdose loss specific for kids ages 7 to 17 and their parents. And it's at an amazing campground. And it's going to be a great weekend for families who've had overdose loss in their life to come together and get that support.
Absolutely. And that's going to be a really great one for the Hudson Valley. Fishkill is such a great area, and it's such a good central area for everybody around here, too. So I feel like a number of people who are affected by that will be able to travel up and be able to take advantage of that. And I think that's really important. Again, you're listening to In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's award-winning public affairs and issues program. Speaking with Krista, the Senior Regional Director of Comfort Zone Camp, and talking about the wonderful programs that they offer all year round. Whether it's virtual or in person, they have all these phenomenal ways to help kids and families out who are dealing with their grief. And there are so many ways to get involved with this. Obviously, sign up to be a camper, but you can also volunteer. You can also donate. So, Krista, could you tell us where can people go to look into volunteering opportunities, to sign up for the camp? Where should they go? Where's the website? Where should they hit up?
www.comfortzonecamp.org. Comfortzonecamp.org is where you can go to donate and volunteer. Becoming a volunteer is an amazing experience. Are you looking to change your life or make an impact on someone else's life? This weekend, one weekend, you give up one weekend and your life is forever changed, and you've helped someone else's life. It's such a rewarding opportunity. All we ask is our volunteers create a profile. They get trained, which is 4 hours, and it's a ton of fun. We have in-person trainings, virtual trainings, and then you're trained for life and can volunteer at any camp wherever you're available all throughout the country, which I love. So you can actually travel and volunteer.
That's actually pretty impressive. I like that thought.
Pretty great.
Yeah, because then you'll be able to see so many different stories while also seeing so many different places across the country. And even that offers so many different perspectives as well. Wow. That's pretty profound.
And the volunteer community is a pretty tight-knit community. So if you're looking to, build that community aspect and make friends and even travel with them, our Utah camps are amazing. Our camp out in Long Island is an absolute gorgeous resort area. We've got camps in Florida. There's just a really amazing locations to see the world. And then on the donation side, so Comfort Zone, we pay for all of the campers to come to our camp programs. Mm-hmm. So we are constantly fundraising, and it costs Comfort Zone Camp $600 to send one child to camp for the weekend. So we're constantly fundraising, and we can always use your support. I love working for Comfort Zone Camp because I can truly see when I make a donation, I can see that money being put to good use. And you can't always see that at nonprofits, but here at Comfort Zone Camp, you can see your dollar making a true difference.
Pretty much every child that you see there, that's the difference. That's the donation. That's what's able to happen. And then that's just a trickle down of change, which is so cool. As we wrap up, do you have any final nuggets for anybody listening, especially as somebody who has been through the experience yourself as a camper? What would you say to anybody who's experiencing that grief and not sure where to go right now?
Grief is so isolating. Even if you have a family or you have a sibling and you've all lost the same person, the experience of grief can just make you feel so siloed and alone. But here at Comfort Zone Camp, we say that you're not alone. And we have this beautiful song that we do at our bonfire on Saturday night where we roast s'mores, but then we also toss notes into the campfire in memory of our loved ones. And we listen to a song and we say, it's okay to remember. Because it's okay to remember who that person was to you and whatever feelings you have about them, whether they're positive, whether they're negative, whether there is they were an impact in your life. And you can come to Comfort Zone Camp. You can be involved. You can come out for a day to just come and visit. But get in touch with us. Go to our website, comfortzonecamp.org. Find us on social media. And also tell someone else about Comfort Zone Camp, because I got to say it, we're not Geico. We don't have Geico's marketing budget, and we got to get the word out, which is why, Connor, this is so amazing, this opportunity to be here with all of your listeners, is that we got to let people know that Comfort Zone Camp exists, because the other stat is 1 in 12 kids will experience the death of a parent or sibling by the time they turn 18.
Oh, boy.
That's 6 million kids out there.
Yeah.
And Comfort Zone, we can't help them all, but you can help us reach more kids by just sharing and spreading the word about Comfort Zone Camp, because you never know what's going to happen down the line. We're all going to experience grief, whether we're a millionaire, a billionaire like Taylor Swift, or we are just trying to make ends meet. Yeah. Grief is universal, and that's why Comfort Zone Camp is here to help.
Absolutely. I think that's great, and you're right. It helps anybody. Grief touches anybody. And another thing that I want to point out that we didn't focus on as much, since we were focusing on the grief and the community aspect of it all, you guys also hone in on the traditional aspects of camp. As he said, the fire, the s'mores. I want to also emphasize that. It's like, this is a fun camp experience at the same time, too.
Oh, it is a hoot. It is so much fun. You are rock climbing. You are canoeing. You are doing all the great camp traditional things. You're getting silly. What is so great about volunteering is you get to be and find your inner kid again.
Nice.
When do you get to go and roast a marshmallow? When do you get to do all of these cool things? But you get to be back out in nature, get the vitamin D from the sun on your face, and also get away from your phone, because we are phone free. Ooh. And we get to really, truly make those connections in person. And I think that's what makes our weekend so great. So if your kids are feeling nervous about signing up, emphasize and lean in on the fun camp side of thing, because that is what it is all about. Playing soccer, doing archery, all those great camp things is what you get to do. And then there's healing and grief weaved in between.
That's really impressive. And I wanted to really emphasize that. I was like, oh, we didn't really mention that as much. Talking to all the great stuff that will lead on for the rest of your life, but I just wanted to emphasize the fun there. And that's so cool. It had to be fun. You keep coming back. You're a part of it now, so there's got to be something fun about it. Well, hey, Krista, thank you so much for being here on In Touch. I wish you guys well for the 25th year of Comfort Zone Camp. That's really impressive. For all of those who are listening and are interested in the programs, you can check out all the links and information in the description of this episode. We will have that all available, so you don't have to go searching the internet and hunting that down. We have it all available for you. So again, Krista, thank you so much for being here, and wishing you all the best in 2024.
You're awesome, Connor.
This has been this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley radio stations. We want to give a big thank you to Krista. For more information on Comfort Zone Camp, visit comfortzonecamp.org. Of course, all information can be found in the description of this episode. Whether you've been listening for a while or you just joined us, thank you. You can find In Touch episodes new and old on your favorite streaming services like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. That and listen on demand with your Townsquare radio station mobile app. Of course, you can still find all articles and audio under the In Touch tab on this radio station's app and website. And don't forget, we're also on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at InTouch_HV. If you like what we do here on In Touch and want to be on the show, let us know. Whether you have a topic you want to discuss or you want to be a guest, you can fill out the In Touch submission form, which can be found in the description of this episode. I've been your host, Connor Walsh. Until next time, stay curious, keep an open mind, and as always, I'm glad we get to spend some time.